Dana. The Dana octopus squid lives far below the reach of sunlight, in deep water where almost everything looks unfinished, as if the ocean shaped it in a hurry and left it there. It is a large muscular squid found in the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans, and unlike many other squids, it does not rely on long feeding tentacles. Instead, it uses powerful arms lined with hooks and suckers, giving it a heavier, more brutal look than the sleek image most people picture when they hear the word squid. What makes it especially unsettling is the pair of enormous light organs at the tips of two arms. They are not small, glowing spots. They are bright enough to flash through the dark like underwater headlights, and scientists believe the squid may use them to stun prey, confuse predators, or communicate in the blackness. That alone would make it strange. But the Dana octopus squid becomes even more disturbing once you realize how little of its life people ever see. It spends most of its time in deep pelagic water, moving through a part of the ocean that still feels largely hidden from us. Even its attacks seem abrupt and forceful, with the body twisting around prey rather than delicately reaching out. In a world full of squids that already look alien, this one stands apart by looking almost overbuilt, like it was designed for darkness first and everything else second. It matters because it reminds us that some of the ocean's most capable hunters are not the famous ones near the surface, but the ones waiting far below, armed with light, speed, and a body that seems made for ambush. Humboldt. The Humboldt squid comes from the eastern Pacific, especially along the coasts of Peru, Chile, Mexico, and sometimes farther north, and it has earned a reputation that sounds exaggerated until you look at what it actually is. This is a fast, aggressive, highly intelligent squid that can grow large, move in groups, and hunt with a level of coordination that feels almost too deliberate. Its body is thick and powerful. Its color can shift in rippling flashes of red and white, and its arms carry rows of suckers lined with sharp, tooth-like rings. When it changes color in quick bursts, it can look less like an animal and more like a warning signal coming to life in the water. That is part of what makes it so memorable. It does not just move through the sea. It seems to react, signal, and calculate. What separates the Humboldt squid from many other deepwater species is that people encounter it more often, and that has shaped its image as one of the ocean's most intimidating cephalopods. Fishermen have dealt with its strength for decades, and divers who have seen them up close often describe a strange feeling of being studied. They are sometimes called red devils, partly because of their color and partly because of their intensity. Even so, the real story is not that they are mindless monsters. It is that they are social, adaptable predators built for a harsh environment where speed and coordination matter. They can dive into deep, low-oxygen water that many animals struggle to tolerate, then rise again to feed. That makes them important not just as hunters, but as proof that squid are far more complex than the soft-bodied drifters people imagine. In the Humboldt squid, you start to see the ocean's deeper logic. Intelligence, violence, and survival all packed into one restless shape. Giant. The giant squid is the animal most people imagine when deep-sea legends start to sound almost believable. It lives far below the surface, usually out of sight, and for a long time, people mostly knew it from damaged bodies that washed ashore or from pieces found inside sperm whales. That absence made it feel more like a rumor than a real predator. But the body is very real. It has 8 thick arms, 2 much longer feeding tentacles, a sharp beak, and eyes so large they can gather what little light exists in the dark water. Those eyes are not just for finding food. They may also help it detect the movement of something much bigger nearby, especially a hunting whale. That gives the giant squid a strange presence. It is enormous, but it still lives in fear of something larger. What makes it different from many other squids is the way size changes everything about its image. A small squid can seem delicate. A giant squid does not. Its tentacles can shoot outward to seize prey, and the toothed suckers leave marks strong enough to be found on whale skin. Even now, scientists still know less about its daily life than people assume. It matters because it sits at the line between myth and biology. For centuries, creatures like this fed stories of sea monsters. Then science caught up and found that the truth was not less eerie. It was simply more precise. Glass. Glass squid is not one single species, but a family of squids that survive by looking as if they are barely there at all. They live in mid-water, especially in the twilight zone, where there is enough dim light to reveal a silhouette but not enough to fully hide one. In that kind of place, transparency becomes a defense. Their bodies can appear nearly clear because they keep their pigment sacs closed, and that makes them seem more like drifting shapes than solid animals. Some species also use light organs to hide the shadow of darker body parts, including the eyes, so predators looking up from below see less of an outline. Instead of brute force, much of their survival depends on becoming difficult to notice. They are different from the image people usually have of squid because they do not look muscular or armored. Many are soft, fragile-looking, and strangely hollow in appearance. Part of that comes from a large internal cavity that helps with buoyancy, allowing them to float through open water without spending too much energy. They move quietly, feed on small animals, fishes, and other cephalopods, and spend much of their lives in a part of the ocean where hiding places barely exist. That matters because glass squid show a very different version of deep-sea success. Down there, survival is not always about speed or violence. Sometimes it is about becoming so faint that the ocean seems to forget you are in it. Grimaldi. Lepidoteuthis bonplandi is one of the strangest hunting squids ever observed because it seems to break the usual squid design on purpose. It lives in deep mid-water and has a long, gelatinous body, large fins, and fragile tentacles that do not end in the normal tools squid rely on. The clubs at the ends of those tentacles have no suckers, no hooks, and no obvious gripping structures. On paper, that almost makes it sound unfinished. Yet when scientists finally watched it alive in the deep sea, they saw something more unsettling than weakness. The squid flicked and waved those clubs in a way that resembled a small swimming animal. Instead of grabbing prey by force, it may be luring prey close through imitation. That is what makes Grimaldi stand apart. Most people think of squid as sudden attackers built around grasping arms and fast strikes. This one seems to hunt with deception. It appears in tropical, subtropical, and temperate waters around the world, but it is so rarely seen that much of its life still feels hidden. Even its body shape adds to the unease. With a narrow rear extension and a soft, drifting look that makes it feel more spectral than solid. It matters because it expands the idea of what a squid can be. In the deep ocean, evolution does not always make an animal tougher in the obvious way. Sometimes it makes it stranger, subtler, and much harder to understand. Lepidoteuthis. Lepidoteuthis grimaldi is often called the scaled squid, and that name alone explains why it feels wrong at first glance. Squid are supposed to look smooth, soft, and almost polished. This one does not. Its mantle is covered with small cartilaginous scales that give the skin a rough, armored texture, unlike the surface of most other squids. It lives in deep tropical and subtropical waters and is rarely encountered, which only adds to its strange reputation. Adults are also unusual because they lack the long feeding tentacles that many squid use to seize prey. That means its silhouette is already different before you even notice the scales. It looks like a squid that was rebuilt using pieces from some other animal. The more you look at it, the more it feels like an exception to every familiar rule. The fins are broad, the body tapers into a sharp tail, and the scaled covering stops abruptly in places, making the body seem pieced together rather than smoothly formed. Scientists know it is preyed on by animals like sperm whales and large predatory fish, but sightings of the squid itself remain rare. That matters because Lepidoteuthis shows how misleading the word squid can be. It makes people imagine a narrow body, clean skin, and a standard set of limbs. Then an animal like this appears and reminds us that even within a single group, evolution can produce forms that feel almost mismatched to the category they belong to. Colossal. The colossal squid comes from the Southern Ocean, and unlike the giant squid, its reputation is built less on length and more on mass. It is considered the heaviest known invertebrate, a deep Antarctic predator with a thick body, powerful arms, and hooks that make it seem built for holding on rather than merely reaching out. For most of the last century, people knew it mainly through remains found in the stomachs of whales and seabirds, or from animals hauled up by fishing gear. That gave it an almost backward kind of fame. It was well known by evidence, but rarely by sight. Then, in 2025, a live juvenile was finally filmed in its natural habitat near the South Sandwich Islands, a small transparent animal that looked nothing like the brutal image attached to the adult form. That contrast is what makes the colossal squid so unsettling. Early in life, it can appear glassy and almost delicate because it belongs to the glass squid family. Later, that transparency fades, and what remains is one of the most imposing squids on Earth. Scientists estimate adults can reach around 7 meters and weigh as much as 500 kilograms. The body becomes heavier, denser, and more formidable, as if the animal grows out of its own ghost stage. It matters because the colossal squid captures the deeper pattern of this whole descent. The farther down you go, the less stable familiar shapes become. Even a nearly invisible juvenile can belong to one of the strongest and least understood predators in the ocean. Magnapinna. Magnapinna, that often called the bigfin squid, looks less like an animal adapted to the ocean than a drawing that should have been corrected and never was. Its fins are enormous compared with the body, and its arms and tentacles hang down in impossibly long lines, bending sharply in a way that makes them resemble elbows. In some observations, those trailing limbs extend many times longer than the mantle, so the whole animal seems stretched into a shape that barely resembles an ordinary squid at all. It has been recorded in deep waters in different parts of the world, but sightings remain rare enough that each appearance still feels like a glimpse of something unfinished or misplaced. What makes Magnapinna especially disturbing is how little certainty surrounds it. Scientists still do not fully know how it feeds, why it holds its limbs the way it does, or what that posture allows it to do in the water column. The best-known images show it suspended in darkness, thin filaments dropping far below the body like lines disappearing into empty space. There is almost no visual noise around it, which makes the shape itself do all the work. That matters because Magnapinna may be the clearest example of how deep-sea life can become unnerving without doing anything dramatic at all. It does not need speed, teeth, or aggression to feel alien. It only needs to exist in a form that our eyes never learn to expect.